Alright, I've spent around 5 weeks aboard the Teewing Turbo Force and I've done enough muddy rides on natural tech and hand-built flow trails to finally give you a straight answer. Is it really worth all the hype? Is this unknown Chinese brand a genuine contender? Because let's be honest, we've all seen bikes that promise the world on paper only to show their true colours once the rocks and roots appear. Thankfully, I can tell you from the first ride, the Teewing Turbo Force surprised me. Not with gimmicks or trying to be too flashy, but by quietly getting a lot of the fundamentals very right. Today, I'm diving into how the Teewing Turbo Force actually rides, what I've changed on the bike, the quirks I've found, and whether it's worth your time, and maybe even your cash. If you missed my first video, then here is a quick recap on Teewing and their first eMTB. If you're not familiar with Teewing bikes, don't worry, you're not alone. Known mostly in the electric scooter world, Teewing only entered the MTB scene this year. Right now, Teewing offers just one platform, the Turbo Force, in 3 builds. There's the entry-level XT model, the mid-spec GX build, which is what I'm on, and the top-tier Pro with full SRAM Axis and RockShox Ultimate suspension. Like Amflow, Teewing decided to enter the competitive eMTB market with a trail bike, rather than an all-out enduro rig. With this in mind, the Teewing Turbo Force gets a 160mm travel fork and 150mm of rear-wheel travel. Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to give me a thumbs up, don't forget to subscribe, and if you have any questions, let me know in the comment section below. It takes a long time to put these videos together, so you guys watching and subscribing means a lot to me. And last of all, there's 2 really cool bikes coming. One of them, you guys have already guessed what it is. The other one is a world exclusive, so don't miss out. Right, let's get back to the Teewing Turbo Force review. This might be Teewing's first eMTB, but this is a solid first attempt at a trail bike. While riding this medium-sized frame on my local steep and twisty terrain, I felt naturally centered on the bike. And with the wonderfully plush and active front and rear suspension soaking up impacts, I felt more stable and wasn't forced to shift my weight around too much, which again reduces fatigue and increases confidence when things get really sketchy. There hasn't been a moment that I felt the Teewing was out of its depth. 160mm of front wheel travel is plenty for most UK riding conditions. But if you are faster and hitting even bigger terrain, do remember that this is a trail bike in the end. While Teewing doesn't provide suspension kinematics on their website, I found that the Turbo Force feels like it has quite a high anti-squat at the start of its travel, which gives a really good pedaling platform, especially during fast seated climbing, something the Avinox system easily allows. I didn't notice any pedal bob, and while there's a lockout switch on the Select Plus rear shock, I've not needed to touch it. As the suspension sits deeper into its travel, the anti-squat intentionally drops off and keeps the rear wheel active over rough terrain, maintaining tracking even whilst pedaling. Again, an important characteristic of a full power eMTB. Dropping into fast, steep and loose trails, the Teewing is impressive and a hell of a lot of fun. Hitting the brakes in steep, loose terrain results in the suspension squatting slightly. This anti-rise behavior is again what we want to see from an aggressive riding bike. The last thing you want is your rear suspension to sit up in steep terrain. This would give you that over-the-bar sensation. With anti-rise designed into the kinematic, the Teewing Turbo Force once again feels predictable and confidence-inspiring. Under hard braking, the rear wheel maintains grip rather than skipping or extending harshly, while through the mid-stroke, the Teewing Turbo Force remains stable and predictable when entering rough terrain and corners. Overall, the suspension on the Teewing Turbo Force is efficient and composed. Impressive considering this mid-level spec bike comes fitted with a basic Super Deluxe Plus rear shock and entry-level RockShox Lyric base fork with Rush damper. I would say out of the box, the suspension on the Turbo Force does seem to prefer steeper and rough terrain, like the trails I tend to ride out the door. When riding in faster, more manicured terrain, where you're putting down steady power, the suspension can sometimes feel a little overactive and you lose a bit of pedal platform. And the Teewing seems to prefer swallowing trail obstacles rather than popping off them. But with a few adjustments, adding an air token, front and rear for example, there is definitely the ability to tune the suspension to how you want them to feel without much bother. As a trail bike, how Teewing intended the Turbo Force to be ridden, this is an incredible bike, and one with a lot of potential that could be unlocked with a few small upgrades. Speaking of which, in my first video I already went over my choice in swapping out the tyres for something more durable, and while I was at it I went for a carbon wheel set too. This is not only saved a little weight, but more importantly means I can ride anywhere and be confident that I'm not going to get a puncture. I simply wasn't able to push the bike as hard as I wanted with the stock tyres, and I would certainly recommend anyone considering this bike to upgrade the tyres and moving to a tubeless setup. The stock carbon 35mm diameter bar was actually much more comfortable than I was expecting it to be, but as it's quite a low rise bar, I did decide to swap it out for something else. Swapping to a 40mm rise Pembree GCS alloy bar allows me to run the stem with fewer spacers. Running too many spacers will actually push your bar and stem back towards the rider, effectively reducing the reach. While swapping to the Pembree bar and stem, I also swapped to a pair of prototype Pembree grips. These are of a much softer compound to the Velo grips that the bike ships with, and the grip design means better traction in mud and wet riding conditions. In addition to completely protecting the frame with ride wrap, something I wish I'd done before even riding the bike, I also added a tempered glass screen protector to the Avinox dashboard. Some of you may not know this, but the Avinox display uses the same touchscreen as the DJI Pocket 3 camera, so screen protectors are easy to source and really affordable. I bought these from Amazon for around £6 a pair. As I mentioned in my previous video, I'm not going to talk too much about the Avinox M1 system, as there are already hundreds of videos covering this, but there are a few bugs and highlights I noticed. These won't be exclusive to the Teewing, and any Avinox powered bike could face the same. For example, once updated to the latest firmware, which brings the Avinox M1 its full 1000 watts, there is an experimental feature activated. This is an angle detection safety feature, which is meant to lock out the motor and turn off assistance once the bike tips past 45 degrees. In theory, this is a great idea and should stop you from being flung off the bike, but in practice, I recommend switching it off. In one instance, the bike thought I was at 45 degrees when starting a small but steep climb. On another occasion, the Avinox system locked up when I manualed up a bank to attempt a technical climb. And I've also had an intermittent issue with the left-hand controller.
Oh, hello.
When I was taking the suspension.
Oh, stopped working. Oh, it stopped working. That's weird.
It tends to fix itself and is currently working again, but I would guess this is not typical behaviour. The one saving grace though is the fact that the Avinox dashboard and touchscreen give you an alternate method of controlling your bike. So if you do have these problems during a ride, you'll still be able to stay out and enjoy yourself. Other than this, the system has been great. I love the display and the ability to access all the settings and adjustments on the bike rather than having to use the app on a phone. And the power delivery is just incredible. I'm also really happy with the battery life and range. I've been getting around 1600 to 1800 meter climbs on rides locally where the gradient of climbs is much steeper. And this is all ridden in the auto mode with the full 1000 watts. Adjusting the setting and using trail or eco could unlock some seriously massive rides. The fast charging feature is great to have too, as is the ability to charge off a power bank, though I've not needed to do this yet. I would say though that perhaps a more robust charger cover would be a nice to have. While I've not run into any issues with the rubber cover that comes on the bike, it does feel quite easy to open and I would hate it to do so while riding this winter. Now a lot of you have asked about pricing and availability, and pricing is currently dealer and region specific. And at the time of recording this video, a UK dealer hasn't been established yet, so UK pricing remains unconfirmed. In the US though, the Turbo Force lineup ranges from $4,999 to $7,499, while in the EU it sits between €5,499 and €8,999. So after 5 weeks on the Teewing Turbo Force, I can confidently say this is a genuinely well-engineered bike. The frame, suspension and kinematic and the build kit all work amazingly well together to offer a great performing, balanced product right out the box. And with a few updates like tyres, the Turbo Force becomes a seriously capable machine and holds its own against far more expensive and established options. This is a proper trail all-mountain eMTB with massive potential. It is genuinely shocking that an unknown bike brand can launch such a competitive bike right out of the gate. Just imagine what a second generation Teewing Turbo Force might be like. And who knows what other models Teewing has in its roadmap. As a first entry into the competitive eMTB market, this is more than just a solid first try. This is an excellent bike. So that's the Teewing Turbo Force review. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to give me a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe. And if you have any comments or questions, jump into the comment section and I'll answer them as quickly as possible. Also, tune in for my next videos. There are two really cool bikes coming. One of them is meant to be the second, I cannot say, it's top secret, but you do not want to miss it. Cheers, guys.